call this meeting to
She's
order.
running it.
We are here for a work session today. Doug Shaw will be just a little bit late. He's running a little bit behind, but he'd already told us when he, put in the information on the doodle. So we'll just get started. What we need to do today is really just talk about the process. We don't want to come to any consensus here at the board table, because this is a work session. We want to bring that back to our board meeting on Monday night when RSP is here. Okay, so we really want to keep this pretty high level, talk about the processes or any questions that you might have. But otherwise, the major gist of the conversation needs to take place Monday night.
And obviously, we've gone through RSP to work with the district to talk about those next phases and processes as we look, not only as we focus on enrollments and where the projections are going to be for enrollments to refine those numbers and give us some updates on those, but also then to look at the impact on our elementaries and potential boundary adjustments as necessary with the committee. And they talked at the last meeting that they have clickers and they really want to get that input from the board at this table when they go through what are the priorities and what do we look at to make sure that we assure the right work at the right time with the right approach. And they've kind of put together some of those criteria and examples, and really now it's that process discussion, because I hate to come into that meeting and automatically already have in place, here's exactly what the criteria is going to be, because I think that needs to be that embeddedness, that discussion points, that philosophical frameworks from each board member at that time instead of here at a work session. So I agree with Joyce, it probably should be more about the process or questions about the process. You know, my 2 cents on as we look at the boundary criteria, everything we do, as we always say, has to be based on what's best for kids and how do we provide that excellence in education with everything that we do. And I think that's the focus as we move to the future.
And I guess I'll apologize, because when we, at our last board meeting, when we talked about homework, I think I said this to Dave and Andy, I kind of expected there to have a question and then homework, and I just didn't realize really the homework was probably to review the information they sent out. And so then when we met to review, get ready for the board meeting on Monday, then we decided that, you know, we really need to be, just maybe talk about the process and make sure everybody feels comfortable with what's happening here. So with that, what questions do you have about what you looked through? Dave, I think, looks like you were gonna say something. No? Okay, all right, sorry.
I'm just a little off balance this week.
Okay, all right, that's okay, all right. Let's just open it up and just have casual conversation about it then.
So they have a process that they lead, I mean, they have this sort of set process that they lead with districts too, right?
They do, and I think as they talked about last time.
Yeah, right, correctly.
Okay.
It's one of those
I
things.
read it, okay.
As they said last time, you know, they really want the individual discussions to take place at the table as they go through the clickers and they'll go through the presentation and talk about it. So I think it's always, you know, good to make sure that we understand what's going to happen at that time.
See, I hadn't read it, I read what you said, I didn't know about the clicker part, I wasn't.
Oh, that's right.
So, yeah, I didn't know about the clicker part.
Yeah, what they're going to do.
I read what.
I didn't see that much about process in here.
No, I didn't either, so that's what, but I think we have to trust that
They've done this, yeah, they've done this in so many
they'll lead us through this
districts.
as we need to do it, yeah.
Exactly, and you know, their phases with this is really to set that parameter. What do we want to, you know, as a school district, as a school board, as we look toward the future, knowing our enrollment growth. So, you know, they're going to ask, do we want to focus on making sure we have neighborhoods intact? Do we want to make sure that we have major roadways as kind of the boundaries? Do we want to make sure that we try to minimize impact on students? There's one of our priorities, the cost of buses. You know, so we want to make sure that we frame some of those parameters, and I think we always want to keep our parameters on. We are here for kids. We're here to make sure we provide the best educational experiences for kids, and I think that's those parameters we're going to stay in. So they'll come in, they'll walk us through, kind of like what, you know, at the last meeting, they walked us through kind of an overview and some of the things that they do. This next one is to kind of narrow down then what those parameters would be, because again, it's going to be a committee that need to help decide what this will look like, and really be that groundswell of community expectations. They will stick with the parameters that we design as a school district, but again, they're going to be high-level parameters, just kind of what we talked about, what's in that little homework packet. From there, then have open forums and community forums, and then bring it back to for approval.
Have you used RSP at other districts when you
I've not.
did attendance areas? How'd you do it in other districts?
Well, I've never gone through attendance boundary redistricting.
Okay. So the next question is, those of you that have been through this, I understand RSP was not used in the past.
No.
And so, in general, how did you do it last time, and what would you like to see repeated? Not that we should tell the consultant what to do, but,
Well, RSP's information was used last time, their
Okay.
data.
Enrollment
But-
projections.
Right, but we didn't use, they didn't lead us through a process or.
did they do projections geographically, so
No,
they didn't?
well, I shouldn't say that, they did it geographically, but they didn't make any recommendations.
Right.
Okay.
So they didn't make any recommendations, and then what the district did is really, the superintendent at the time came in and talked about the process that we wanted to go through. And we, first of all, worked out our questions as a big group. And then they divided us down into groups of 5 to 7, I wanna say, groups that we broke out then and talked about, the pros and cons of this and the pros and cons of that.
And that was the boundary.
That's the boundary.
Oh, you set up a
Committee.
committee just for
Boundary
this?
city
Yes,
committee,
and so then.
And that was fairly large.
Yes, and so then the boundary, the committees, the subgroups of the boundary committee then came back again.
Mhm.
And we gave input to each of the things that we thought maybe should happen. And then collectively, the group talked about it. And then again, we went back, kind of kept narrowing down what the options were.
Mhm.
You read through all the minutes, so does that sound pretty similar?
Yep.
I guess I lived it, so.
Yep.
And then I was the board rep, so I participated in the conversations at specific tables. And then it was actually, some leadership within the committee, from the community then, that came and made the recommendation to the district, or to the board. And then all I did was just affirmed what they said. It wasn't an easy process, but I've been on the last 3 boundary attendance changes. But I still think it was a good process.
We had forums, community forums, a couple of those.
So do you think based on, I'm sorry, Susan, let me interrupt you.
That's okay. Then we got community members' input in, or after a recommendation was made by the committee. we had forums.
So based on the previous experiences of establishing that process, do you see, hear, or read anything different in relation to what RSP is bringing to the table in terms of communicating that process to the community?
I think the plus is that from my side is that RSP has been through it in other districts, so they have that experience. For me, I only have the experience in this district, even though I've served on 3. I also think that they're a third party, so they have no hidden agendas. They're not part of the administration, they're not part of the board, so they can take it at a higher level as they walk us through it. And they, I think, will be able to keep on their part, the emotional side out of it for them. They're here to walk us through a process. And even though I thought that our administration did a fabulous job, there's still, I think at that point was a little bit, there were people that had questions. Did they already have an agenda on where that needed to head? And really they didn't. But again, I think that'll take that question away.
Well, and I'll just reiterate what I mentioned at the board meeting, because Andy's main objection, one of the objections you indicated you heard were folks saying, look, you're going for the redistricting, or you're going for the bond, but whatever you're going for, what's this process so it's open? And it does us no good to go through a process unless that word gets out. And I know at least in our own circles, if we talk to people and they say, well, redistricting, are you guys hiding something? No, there's meetings that are either happening or going to happen. And even after decision, that did happen, in which, we can let folks know that there was indeed a process, and furthermore, a process by a third party.
We want to
You're right.
communicate that out, and we've started some of that work, and we want to make sure that all the meetings are posted, everything is communicated, all the different informational pieces are out there. Because again, it has to be public, it has to be open. And to me, we are probably going to have very few staff. It'd be good to have, a board member or two on the committee. It's going to be made up of parents, community members, because again, it shouldn't be necessarily staff that are dictating this. It has to be our people that live in our neighborhoods.
So there will be a committee same size as last time?
It's gonna be, when they talked about, the last meeting and they gave that, kind of the timeline and the overview, they talked about a committee of potentially 30 to 50 people. And
Oh, I remember seeing that.
Yeah, we're looking at a committee probably in that 30 to 35 group range. Our focus is trying to get about 3 parents from each of our attendance centers, including our junior highs. Because one of our challenges is if we build a 7th elementary, how do we redistribute the balance going into our feeder system into our junior highs? And that's gonna be a point to explore and look at, and that's gonna be a challenge.
It's gonna, say that again, I lost my,
Yeah, we have, with our 6 elementaries, it's an easy split, 3 and 3 in junior highs. If we go to a 7th elementary, the challenge becomes how do you make sure you have a good feeder system to feed into your junior highs? And that's gonna be something to explore and look at.
What's the date we hope to have this?
Right now, backwards mapping that mid-May timeframe to have everything completed. So that gives it, about 2.5, 3 months.
And again, I think it's important we communicate that it's not for this fall, it's for the following
Right.
year.
You bet.
So people,
Well into the future.
I think there will be a motion regardless, and hopefully, I hope that with our social media push, with the newsletter, I've heard lots of great comments about that, with the streaming we're doing now, I hope people hear more and more, and they should get out and follow all the different schools on Twitter. Hopefully they start to look at what each elementary is doing, and it takes some of that, oh, there's inequities among our elementary. There are great things happening at every single one of our elementaries. So hopefully if people start following that, it'll take some of that fear out. And, right now I do think we're at a pretty good place where no matter which elementary you're gonna be at, there's great staff and great kids. And so hopefully that we can communicate that just better and better every year.
Very good point.
so what happens, I was looking at these maps, I've got a solution. So, we don't need a consultant, I can show you the best way to do it.
He's a pretty smart guy.
And so what happens to deal with factors like that, and
So are you the board rep for this
Everybody can
committee?
take the
Did you
fall.
just
Everybody for
volunteer?
That's why that outside consultant could take all those different pieces and be able
Okay.
to craft it into, a workable solution, because we know we have a lot of challenges with
Yeah.
enrollments and budget or constraints within our capacities of some of our buildings. They will be able to take some of those individual pieces and be able to craft this into a workable solution, because they've done this, you look at Ankeny, you look at Waukee, you look at Johnson, just some of the districts they've worked with in the state of Iowa, let alone Kansas City and Liberty and Missouri and all those other growing districts across the Midwest that they've worked with through this process. They have the experiences, they take the emotion out of it from their standpoint, they can help create a framework where multiple viewpoints can be refined down into a workable solution. And they talk about their successes, be able to get that accomplished, and they talk about it well.
I don't know if they've got this information, or if the meeting would want to look into it at all, but what I would find interesting is, how often growing districts are redistricting. My sister lives in West Des Moines, and I think they redistrict every year.
Yeah.
And so you never know, and it's just accepted, it's not a big deal, it's part of the world,
Mhm.
it's just part of what they deal with. So I think that would be maybe some good context for people to understand, growing is a good problem to have. And this is how other places are dealing with it, and they get through it without, the world ending.
That's what it is, it's such an emotional issue.
And some,
Between schools.
yeah, it is emotional. And some districts have given up on neighborhood schools for that reason. You move into town, okay, you go to that school, and they have buses going everywhere.
Or you've got a first 1-2 school, 3-4 school,
Right.
5-6 school, and
Yeah.
so they're.
I had a question, Andy, the timeline for the boundary study was intentionally put in place so that the outcome would hopefully be clear prior to at least what would be the next legal date on which you have a bond vote.
Right.
But what I've decided about the bond vote at this point. decision to do that, but it were to decide not to take the next legal date for that vote, would that change the timeline for the boundary study, or is the boundary study kind of framed up, and it'll take that long time regardless of when, or
Yeah, it will take that amount of time, plus I think to Jenny's comments, we wanna make sure you plan that appropriately, because we know by that 2016-17 year, that's when we're gonna have some really strong, huge challenges in some of our attendance centers based on current enrollments and grade, level, class sizes, so we need to make sure that we do something regardless, and the timeline for the work would be the same timeline. You just wanna make sure that you're proactive enough that you don't do it, 6 months, 2 months, 1 month before it actually needs to be enacted.
so piggybacking on your comment about good schools, good staff, regardless of where your child goes. I haven't seen an actual date when the full list of state level attendance center performance rankings are gonna come out. But that is in itself gonna be significant, even if we weren't doing a boundary study. That is somewhere gonna drop into this process. I anticipate the full list will be after the boundary study.
Oh,
right?
yeah, that's sometime late fall.
But that, we should just anticipate that when that comes out, depending on what's come out of the boundary study, that, those two things are gonna be looked at in relation to each other.
Yeah, but we can make the committee aware of that also. I didn't even think about that until now, that's a great point.
And the other factor is we almost have to have two plans, one for 6 elementaries and one for 7 elementaries.
Exactly. Yep, and we talked to them about that.
And even if we were to pass a bond, it still would be a staggered plan, correct? Because by 2016,
Right,
we're
that's
gonna
right,
have the new building.
that's right.
Yeah, and the question would be if we, if we go with the 7th elementary and that passes and is accepted, then do we say, well, for 1 year, we'll make the reprieve and be able to make something happen? Because we know to be able to bring portables into an area is about $100,000.
I don't think we can do it for that anymore.
$120,000 to be able to bring a portable in by the time we look at plumbing and
I don't know if that's
infrastructure.
enough.
$150,000 to bring in a portable?
And it's the requirements of the foundation and utilities getting it to the site, and then it'll be the lease of the building itself, because the district is using every portable classroom that it has. And so we won't have any other choice but to, if we have to move that direction, then we'll have to lease some sort of a building similar to what we did on a temporary basis over Hansonville for those 2 years.
So do you do something temporarily, even if you look at, some regional spaces for a classroom or two, and then know that it's gonna be for a 1-year situation? The challenge is not knowing what is going to happen. You wanna be able to have a couple plans so we know, what the outcomes and what the response will be.
And then we fight the issue all over again of what attendance center and where we're gonna carve out the space to do that, because as we look around at our different elementary attendance centers, there's just not a lot of room to put portable classrooms. They're all very tight.
2-story,
Portables?
yeah.
Oh, this looks it. I'm sure the fire code department.
I'm full of good ideas today.
You are. I'll say, that's gonna be something we'll have to,
I wrecked my car Wednesday and I'm still recovering.
I thought it
Don't
was
quote
because
him on
you just got home from vacation.
No, FedEx truck pulled out in front of me on the way home Wednesday.
Williams recommends 2-story portables.
Yeah, don't put that in the story, please, Andrew. I wanna market that, that's gonna be my $1 million.
Sometimes we need to be out of the box.
That is
Or just
out of
stack the
box.
boxes, what
Yeah.
we do.
But I'll be back to normal by next week. so. Yeah, that's right. I didn't tell you that part, did I?
I don't know if you guys have had the communication, but I've had quite a bit of communication now from some community members as well as staff that are talking. People know we need to do attendance monitoring, we need to start looking at these just because of the overcrowding of some of our elementaries, and it's one of the challenges that we have as a growing district. We know we need to be able to move forward and have a forward-looking view on what we can accomplish and what needs to take place to provide that great education for all of our kids, because the facilities certainly are a part of it.
I think just the most important thing to Jenny's point is that we just need to make sure that we, and Jim, or everybody's actually, that we need to make sure we just communicate with people to make sure that they understand what's happening, every step.
Yeah.
You know, now that we're live streaming our board meetings, people can see that. We need to be concise about our plan and just, you know, why we're doing it and why we have to do it now. And I guess it is what it is, and it's something that we need to do. It's not something that we like to do, but we don't have a choice.
No, the last time we did this, one of the things we discussed after the fact, that I don't know if possible, and goes back to what you suggested, would be something that maybe the boundary committee could talk about, having meeting again every 2 years. I mean, we just do, and reviewing the information. And set that up so that the community knows, we're just going to start doing that, and sometimes there will be no changes recommended, and other times there are. Is that something that maybe they could?
That's one of the homework pieces in here that I think is going to come out of Monday night, as far as one of the board thoughts. Do we want any boundary changes to be long-standing boundary changes, or do we want these reviewed every year, every 2 years?
Right.
So I think that's going to come from the discussion Monday evening as well, like to say, is that a priority or not?
Right, and I know we talked about that after the last boundary studies, and then you bring it up again, Ankeny, Des Moines, West Des Moines, they just expect that.
Yeah.
So maybe we need to get in the cycle of every 2 years our community expects that we review it.
Or when the balance gets out by a certain percentage or some way to.
Well, whatever, but see, they wouldn't necessarily know the balance, and that's
We
kind of what
would.
we do anyway now, is but I think that comes as a surprise sometimes to community members, but if we had, if you said every 2 years or 3 years, whatever we said, there's no surprise there.
Oh, yeah.
Just
Just-
I mean,
Could be
that's
a
something that
15-minute.
everybody can understand, that every 2 years we
It
do
just keeps
that.
you ahead of the process.
Right.
I mean, my
Just a
sister's
thought.
experience has been sometimes they change,
Right.
sometimes they don't.
Could be a 15-minute meeting if
Right,
nothing
exactly,
changes.
it's just a thought,
Proactive.
yeah, exactly.
Great idea.
One less surprise.
One thought I wondered, might be more for RSP than anybody else, in their calculations in terms of visually obvious descriptions is to see the plot lands and where homes are gonna be going up. But I think, I would say probably the last couple of months, Karina's come to me indicating she's had, I think, 2 new students, and, you know, it's just her and that one in Cedar Heights. And what someone indicated to me too, and I was thinking through, is that, do they consider those boundaries, or those addresses of Waterloo that have the Cedar Falls address? A lot of those, I'm just picking on Cedar Heights because that's one of them, I think Orchard's the other. Those neighborhoods are changing, and so kids, and the folks retired moving out, and the folks with kids are coming in. That could potentially be couple dozen kids coming into those 2 schools. Do you know if they've considered that? And
They do.
Really?
Yeah, they do. And again, there's kind of formula-based metrics associated with that,
Okay.
and they try to figure that out. But again, that's why you need to kind of update, and we're on that schedule now to
Yeah.
update our enrollment numbers, because there's changes that occur. And what we're seeing is, certainly in some of our elementaries, like Cedar Heights, where they anticipated having that enrollment go down a little bit, it's actually gone up. So that's one of the challenges.
We
And
had change over in our neighborhood, and with families coming in with 5
younger
families
families.
with 5 kids.
Mhm.
Yeah,
it's
in our
a
neighborhood
tough
alone.
metric, I would think. New home, probably some kids. But if you have some 1950 or 60 home, you know, who's moving into those things?
It's happening in our neighborhood too, where, you know, it used to be a much older neighborhood, and now people are saying, wow, there were kids walking down the street, now we have kids all over the
And
place.
look at the age demographic of that neighborhood, and figured that there's a likelihood that this number of homes will be turned over.
Yeah. So, you know, they'll go through all that demographic information again, and review all that information, go through all the different metrics, go through working with the city and working with, you know, different planning and zoning, and find out where the different subdivisions are, but also try to figure out the demographic changes in each of those neighborhoods by, you know, homeowners and buying of homes and all those different transitions. So, you know, it's process, and it's a scientific process, but it's not 100% accurate, but they've been within, 1% from the original estimate, or enrollment projections, and I guarantee they'll be within 5% of their enrollment projections.
Pretty impressive.
It's very impressive, and they're good. They just know we have stuff.
So side note to that, so if you live in Waterloo, in your Cedar Falls district, is it automatic if they go to that attendance center, Cedar Heights, are they officially considered open enroll?
Once they go to that attendance center.
Okay.
That's the school boundary line.
Yeah, it's all,
In the city.
and that goes back to when the school district was established, they allowed, they kind of set up parameters for what the district would look like, and then cities
Mm-hmm.
expanded, and then there's some carryover from where a resident might say, well, I wanna be in this school district if they're right on the boundary, and that might be different from the city boundaries. So-
Right.
So we have things, likewise, Waterloo has some areas that are considered Cedar Falls, but it's Waterloo School District.
That accuracy, how many years is that out? And when we say 1% or 3%?
Well, we've been tracking since 2010, and, his original enrollment projection, I think we're right at about 1% between what he said from year to year and what we actually had for students and seats. And so far, he's been very, very close,
Yeah.
and Rob, for those that were on the board, will recall when he did his original projection in 2010, he said he'd always be within 5%. Well, he's certainly inside that envelope
Mhm.
so far,
Mhm.
compared to, for Cedar Falls.
Well, you'd expect it to get wider as time goes on, right, until they update
I
it?
mean, it varies from year to year,
Mhm.
but if you take it as an overall, it's been about 1%. Scotia over maybe, but right in that 1% range.
So from the time you did it until now, which is about 5 years.
And that's comparing, this is where I was at in 11, this is where we were at 12, I think I'm gonna be here, this is where we're at, doing it that way.
Mhm.
He's within
That's
one.
two studies, right?
Mhm.
That's the two studies, yeah.
I can't remember how far apart were those.
3 years.
Was it that many?
Wasn't it? Or did we switch it
Well,
up?
aren't we within 50 kids of what he thought we would be when he did this projection 5 years ago?
Yeah.
But 4 years ago, whenever the first one was.
2010, wasn't it?
The last one was done in 2013,
Yeah.
so.
So he's been,
That's with us.
I think it was done following the decision to close the lab school, because originally I don't think it had been anticipated we would have done another one.
well,
as
that's when
quickly
he
as
did the
that.
first one, but then he came back, and when that decision was announced, the district had him come back in and redo it again.
Okay.
So,
So they were about 3 years apart, and one was
right.
before we knew it, and one was after we knew it.
Because we had just had him update it, and then the lab school made their decision, and we had him come back a year later and re-update it again, so this is actually his fourth?
Oh, before,
Third.
yeah.
It's either his third or fourth.
But that's why I said it was third one, actually, is
Mhm.
what I thought.
Third,
Mhm.
so he's been here at least 2 other times previous. And he's run pretty, so far, he's been running pretty close.
Now, there's variances within different buildings, but when you look at the composite of the district, that's.
Yeah, I'm looking at K-12, and Rob's projections don't take into account or pre-kindergarten.
And as you noticed by the article in the Cedar Falls Times, we have people camping out at 11:30 at night for an opening at 7 AM to get preschool spots in our district, because we don't have the room to offer preschool. We'd offer more preschool, but we only have about 120 slots.
We have space.
So, again, people camp out, literally camp out. So,
And we open the building at 5 AM,
Well, I think, if you're feeling comfortable, we can just adjourn the work session, knowing that we're gonna come back on Monday with RSP and have a conversation about the information that they shared with us, and, move the process forward if you feel comfortable with that. Again, I even think this conversation wasn't wasted today, I think it was good. I'm glad we're doing it right now, instead of maybe just talking about some of those things Monday night, but that way we can get to the meat of, the conversation Monday night.
that'd be good for somebody to let Doug know too. I don't know if he's on his way or not.
Told me he would be here by 20 till, so I will, when we're done here, I'll give him a call. Or I'll stay in and kind of bring him up to speed. Otherwise, are we okay? All right, do I have a motion to?
Move adjourned.
Thank you, David. Thank you, all in favor, signify by saying